Coming to you with some breaking news, huge news here. Tesla has finally released the cheaper Teslas that they've been talking about all year. Now, we were told it was going to be a stripped down Model Y, and while that is certainly true, it turns out, surprise, surprise, we also have a stripped down Model 3. Now, of course, both of these cars do come with less features than what's in the premium models. And there are some things, though, that even I was surprised to see no longer there. Of course, there's prices available, range, all these things. Most of it, we were kind of in the ballpark, but I'm kind of shocked at some of these numbers. So it might just be better to go ahead and dive into the details because there's a lot here. So first and foremost, let's take a look here at the new Model Y. This is a rear-wheel drive standard Model Y. So Tesla has changed the naming conventions. We have a standard rear-wheel drive. Now we have a premium rear-wheel drive, which is the long-range rear-wheel drive. We have a premium all-wheel drive, which is the long-range all-wheel drive. So they have changed the naming conventions here. And as you can see, $39,990. And I gotta be honest, this is more than even I expected. I really thought we were gonna be about $37,500 in that ballpark and hopefully lower, but it's actually gonna be 40 grand. So it's $5,000 difference between the standard and the premium. So what does that get you? Of course, you can already see some differences on the outside, but for the numbers, 321 miles of range, which is pretty good actually, 125 mile an hour top speed and 6.8 seconds 0 to 60, which is definitely going to be noticeably slower than the long-range rear-wheel drive at 5.4. But looking at these real quick, so first thing you're going to notice is we now have these new 18-inch wheels. So these 18-inch wheels are going to help you achieve that 321 miles. We have a new front bumper here, much more simplified looking at that compared to the regular bumper on it. And of course, not just the light bar, but the headlights as well. We now have this sliver where the headlight is kind of buried in here instead of it's down here, and this is just a light bar and turn signal. So that has changed, of course. Now, looking at this thing from the side profile, a couple things that I notice. When you go back and forth between these two, you're going to see a lot of differences here in the shape of the car. The back here appears to be closer to the older style liftgate, and you can even see some differences down here. So we'll get more into that shortly, but also just a clearer look at the side profile of both of these vehicles. And then over here on the back, this is where you can start to see some of those differences a little bit more in detail. Of course, we've lost this light bar, and what used to be this longer tail light is now just a sliver here on both sides. So no more light bar, but also if you look at this glass, this looks like the old Model Y glass. The new one is very straight, it's cut down, but also I'll show you in a video here shortly, but this is glass up here, it looks like. So it doesn't have a sunroof listed, but I'll dig into that shortly. But of course, our bumper down here is a little bit different too, but nothing too major. And then, of course, the standard wheels versus the now actually standard wheels. So 18 inches versus 19 inches. And that's kind of what we're looking at on the inside. Huge changes here right away. Of course, you can see a corner of that fabric that is now inlaid, more of a textile type fabric, and it does look like it is flanked by some vegan leather of some kind, but the center console is gone and it leaves you this big open pocket down here, kind of like in the Cybertruck. The cup holders are still here in about the same spot, and this looks slightly updated for the phone charger. And of course, if we go back and forth, you can see we also lose the ambient lights here on the side. So nothing else too major at first glance other than seeing right up here our sunroof. It is now gone. Here in the back seat, of course, we get our first look at the manual air vents. There is no longer a screen here, and you can see that fabric a little bit more clearer. Of course, no sunroof, a little bit clearer also. And then over on the premium, there you go. You can see the difference. You can even see the difference in the shape of the seats themselves also from standard to premium. And then there you go right there. There's that rear screen that you're used to seeing. Another thing, apparently this centerpiece, rather than this middle part opening up and showing cup holders and an armrest, It's the entire thing when it folds flat. That's now where your cup holders are. So simplified there as well. Now looking down here, here's a surprise. We only have 3 color options. You can get it in stealth gray, white, or black. It's $1,000 for white. It's $1,500 for black. So a limited option for colors, and it comes standard with these 18-inch aperture wheels, and you can upgrade those for $1,500 to the regular 19-inch wheels. That does reduce your range to 303 miles though. You still have the option for a tow package, which is helpful, but interior only 1 color, which I'm not surprised to see. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. Down here in safety, you're going to start to see we have some differences in what comes with full self-driving, what comes with autopilot. Autopilot has been changed. If I go in here to compare models, this is where I can show you something really interesting all the way here at the bottom. If you look under driver assistance, we now have traffic aware cruise control versus traffic aware cruise control and auto steer. So auto steer is no longer a standard feature, meaning the car will basically be in cruise control and it'll speed up and slow down according to the traffic in front of it, but you are steering the whole time. So no basic autopilot with this. Also, as we go through this, 321 miles, you can see it compared in performance. And down here, supercharged in 15 minutes, you get 160 miles of rated range versus 182 or 169. So the good thing is it's similar, it's close to at least what the all-wheel drive was doing, but it is definitely a different battery. The battery is actually the same battery but smaller. So it's not an LFP. You don't get to charge to 100%. We have reduced the stereo system in half. We're down to 7 speakers. And then FM AM radio is also gone, which was interesting. Of course, I don't know anybody personally who still listens to that, but you know, whatever. Still have that same 15-inch touchscreen in the front. And then here we go, closed glass roof versus panoramic glass roof. It is up there. It's behind that headliner. Ambient lighting is, of course, gone. And now we have this open center console, manually adjusting wheel, which is not too terrible, I don't think. And then on the inside, here's your textile decor versus the micro suede and textile. We do not have a HEPA filter, which is different. And then second row is manual versus the touchscreen vents. Now on the seating, we have these textile seats with a little bit of vegan leather on them. The first row is heated, but not cooled like it is in the other trims. And then on the second row, these are manually folding. You don't have the button release in the trunk area either. So this is definitely trimmed down there. We also don't have heated seats in the back. So that's definitely a change. Another way to take out some costs. We do have LED headlights instead of the light bar, auto high beams, but these are not the adaptive headlights that we are used to having. So this is basically back to the OG headlights, essentially, is what I'm thinking we're looking at. The suspension itself is actually different too, and there's, I think, 1/10 of an inch height difference between the standard and the premium. So it's probably not going to be quite as comfortable, or maybe it's less performance enabled. So that'll be interesting to feel the difference between this suspension and what's in the premium Model Y. And then everything else is pretty much the same standard features here. And looking at this car, you can see a really good look at that front end, but scrolling down, see that glass on top, you can see it's definitely there. So maybe removing that headliner won't be such a hard thing to do. And now you have a sunroof. But so far, everything looks pretty normal. It still is a powered liftgate on the back, which is helpful. And another look here at the front, you have no paint on the bottom. Here's a close-up of that interior center console. That's definitely a different charging spot for your phone. No light bar in the back. Doesn't look terrible though with the black. And then the front looks okay. Still have Sentry mode, which is cool. and still holds basically the same amount of cargo. Now, there is some difference in the frunk, which I'll get to later. And of course, it's still built for safety. It's still going to be world-class safety in this vehicle. So that all comes in at $40,000. So 5 grand less than the premium. That is a ton more car for $5,000. You get more range, you get faster charging, you get faster performance, you get the light bar, you get the better bumper, you get the rear light bar as well, you get ambient lights on the inside, you get a sunroof, you get the bigger wheels, you get a full center console. I mean, just the wheels alone, that's $1,500. So now you're at $41,500. You're $3,500 less if you match the wheels. And then you have power everything, and you have better sound insulation because it's actually single pane glass on the standard instead of dual pane like we have now. So sound is probably going to be a little bit louder on the road than what you're looking at with the premium option. And we still don't have it showing up for lease, and it looks like based on current rates, 5.14. Is that the same? No. So they're actually giving you a discounted rate on the rear wheel drive, which makes it look a lot closer, but this is going to be over $100. It's probably going to be about $100 a month when you finance this. Difference between the premium and the standard, and it's really going to be interesting to see what the lease comes in at. That's where I think most of the volume of this cheaper model is going to come from. So let's move over to the Model 3. It's much the same, except now it's $37,000, which is about $500 less than I hoped that the Model Y would be, but same 321 miles of range, 125 miles per hour top speed, 5.8, 0 to 60. So certainly faster, better. But here we can see a little bit of the difference. It is a lot more similar to the premium Model 3 than the Model Y. Same exact front bumper because we already have split headlights here. You just have different wheels. It looks like you can see those seats, by the way, changing shape on the inside. So they are a little bit different. And then from a side profile, looks exactly the same minus those wheels, of course. On the rear, again, looks exactly the same. It's just literally on the outside, it's kind of just these wheels. Now on the inside, you can see we have a sunroof. It is there. So they didn't cover that up with the Model 3. And you do have a full center console also. So a little bit more complete interior than in the Model Y. Really the only difference here is if you go back and forth, the ambient lights are gone. And you lose one of the openings for the cup holders. They're just always open instead of sliding under this. Everything else kind of looks about the same. It really is, yeah, about the same. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of the back seat, but it should be similar to what we're seeing in the Model 3. Of course, same thing, 3 colors only, 1,000 for white, 1,500 for black, and then you can upgrade to the bigger wheels, the 19-inch wheels, $1,500, and the standard wheels are the same 18 inches as they are on the Model Y. It's 321 miles and also drops you to 303. Still, black is the only interior color as well, and the same thing with autopilot is looking like what we're talking about here. So $37,000 comparing models here now. If we go to the bottom, if we go here, we're talking 170 miles in 15 minutes versus 195, 185, which that's pretty noticeable. 7 speakers, which is the same as you get in the rear wheel drive. So the premium rear wheel drive Model 3 actually is different than the Model Y because in the Model Y, you get the same interior features, but not the case in the Model 3. FM radio, of course, is gone. You have the same wheel options, 15.4-inch touchscreen in the front, nothing in the back. We don't have the ambient lighting, manually adjusting steering wheel, textile decor, second row manual adjustment for air vents. First row is heated only, second row does not have heat, and we do have manual folding seats like we do in the Model Y. Manually adjusting side view mirrors, just like in the Model Y, and a different suspension once again also here. Traffic aware cruise control is the same thing. Auto steer is no longer a standard option with, I guess, autopilot, or if they're going to change that name also. Everything else is a standard feature and is what you'd expect. You can see there's not much to really see here because the only major differences are kind of what you touch and feel on the inside. The outside is basically the same car. So everything's going to be essentially a feature that you're not touching, but that the car does or doesn't do, other than the seats themselves. So there's the interior, giving you a closer look at that textile interior. So nothing terrible. And yeah, that's pretty much the situation here for the standard range or the standard rear wheel drive Model 3. So I want to go over just a couple other details here. We're talking a 69 kilowatt hour battery pack. It is the same battery pack that's in the other models, just a smaller version of that. So they took some cells out. They have also capped charging to 225 kilowatts, which that's pretty respectable. Previously on reduced charging vehicles, it was like 170. So 225, that's still plenty for a peak on these cars. It'll be interesting to see what that charge curve looks like with the smaller pack and with it still achieving well over 200 kilowatt charge rate. Another thing that you don't really see here is they've actually changed the material that the frunk is made out of. When you open the hood of the car, you can tell a lot of stuff has been stripped out, but you still have the bucket there. But instead of made of plastic, it looks like it's made of fiberglass, essentially, like a textile hard shell type material. Sometimes you'll see like floor mats made out of this stuff. So certainly not nearly as robust. So a difference nonetheless in the front, it is still there and it is still usable. And then, like I said earlier, we have single pane glass. This is like back in 2020. We do not have dual pane glass. So you are going to have some level of noticeable difference in road noise in this car versus the premium models. And then finally, something interesting, we have manual seats in the back, but in the front, there's no button. So there's no lever, there's no button, it's all on the screen. That I'm not so crazy about. However, I guess you really set your seat once and then you save it to your profile. So it's always set to that. I don't really ever adjust it, I don't think. So I guess that's kind of the idea there when cutting costs. Don't have a button, don't have levers, just everything controlled by the screen. So it's still a powered front seat, both front driver and front passenger. But that's certainly an interesting change. You can see the shape of the seats are a little bit different. We obviously have different material in there. I wouldn't expect there to be a crazy difference in comfort other than having ventilated seats in the premium options. So let me know what your thoughts are. For me personally, I'm looking at this and I'm not really that crazy about the cost savings we're talking about. We're talking about, I don't know, $5,500 on the Model 3 and $5,000 on the Model Y. That's not a lot of money. Now, of course, you do still get 321 miles of range, and that's a big deal. That alone is a big piece of this, but $40,000 is higher than even I expected. So I think this is going to be a tale of what the lease looks like on this car. It all depends on how much demand this thing has right out of the gate, but at $40,000, I can't really imagine it being crazy high demand for this thing. There's a lot of equipment stripped out for $5,000. So let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. I thank you so much for joining us today, and I can't wait to catch you on the next one.